Welcome back for part 3, everybody, the Q&A. So thank you very much again for joining us, Sheryl Thai of Cupcake Central and Kym Huynh of WeTeachMe. So thanks very much for your insights. Hopefully we can dig a little bit deeper. So I'm just going to kick this off. I'm going to ask a few questions and then we will put it out to the audience. But Sheryl, I'm going to start with you actually. I want to go back to that moment when you're in the cupboard and you're having a bit of a meltdown. Obviously you've got to build yourself back up. How do you go about these things? Was that the biggest meltdown?
That was definitely bordering nervous breakdown. But I just remember crying in the cupboard and I just knew at that moment that I had enough and something had to change. So I think I was just doing it day in and day out and I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so I started going on Google and I just started researching, and for some reason I was on Facebook and something popped up, and it was something called the Entourage, which was an entrepreneur's conference. And so that was the very first thing that I attended, and through that I actually met Kym. So it's been one of those great journeys because I met so many friends through that organisation, and to this day we're still really, really good friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. So also thinking back to when you got the redundancy package and you wanted to go it alone, did you have any naysayers? How did you deal with the people that were maybe trying to quash the dreams?
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of people thinking, oh, are you sure you want to go on your own? When are you going to come back into consulting? We've got all these jobs lined up for you. Some people said it was a hobby. I didn't even tell my mum for 6 months that I had lost my job actually. So it was one of those things that I just knew that I wanted to give it a go. And in a way, I just had to ignore them.
Mm-hmm. Does that drive you on more then? If in those early stages, was it more of a point to prove?
Yeah, I do remember that I did want to prove one of my very early bosses wrong. So she was not a very nice boss, and I remember her making me cry, she said one line to me saying that, oh, you have the potential to do well, but you just don't have it right now. And so I just remember hearing that and I was just like, I've been working my ass off. I can't believe she said that to me. And so one of my key driving forces was to prove her wrong. And so at times where I felt like I couldn't do it anymore, I'll just remember that. And it sounds really bad, but it was just one of those things that I wanted to prove her wrong.
Yeah, cool. And then also, this is going to you again, Sheryl. Kym, I'll invite you in a second. But how about the relationship? Obviously, it's now an ex-partner. How did you manage that? And yeah, that must have been quite tricky, right?
Yeah, it definitely was tricky. And I think, we are great friends and business partners. We were just so complementary in terms of how we ran business. He's quite creative and really thinks about the big picture and has a lot of courage. Whereas for me, I was a bit more conservative. So I think when we went through a period of, obviously we broke up and we were together for about 6 or 7 years, it was quite tough. But it gave us an opportunity to systemize our business. And even with my background as a business analyst, from day one, I was systemizing my business. Even though it was just me, my business partner Tin, and both of our brothers in there, it was one of those things from day one. I actually wrote out a process for everything, from even opening up the store, to how to clean the coffee machine. So that kind of helped us kind of step back and really kind of develop ourselves, and it was quite a bit of a growth period for both of us, but yeah, we're very committed to the business.
Were you able to systemize different timetables so there was no arguments on the shop floor?
Actually,
you'd be working at night time, you'd be working in the daytime?
Yeah, believe it or not, it was systemized to a point where we just needed to go into the business once a week and just run the team meetings. That was it. And so that was pretty much for 2 years, we didn't really see much of each other. But now we're pretty much stepping back in and kind of going to the next phase. So we've really created into a franchise and we're thinking of the next step. And so we're at a really good space at the moment.
Okay, we might come back to that one in a second, but I'm going to come to Kym and talk about systemizing. So Kym, you're very good at systemizing your own goals. Can you shed a little bit of light on the goals that you set for yourself and the business and how that helps to grow the business?
Sure, goal setting. I'll share you a story about why I think it's important. One day I sat down at a dinner table and the gentleman sitting next to me said, Kym, let's talk about goals. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about goals. He goes, did you know only 4% of the world population set goals. And to me, that was mind-blowing, right? I mean, I thought everyone, who sets goals here? Put your hands up if you set goals. See, that's a lot more than 4%, right? Right? I thought everyone sets goals. Apparently only 4% set goals. So knowing that, I went back and I really wanted to do it properly. And one of my biggest learnings on my journey so far is that if you want to learn something, you want to learn it from someone who has achieved what you want to achieve. Because everyone's got opinions, right? It's like bumholes. Everyone's got an opinion. But the one you want to listen to is the one that has achieved what you want to achieve. And so I sat down with some of the best goal setters I knew, had access to, and I just said, just teach me everything you know. I'm not going to question. I'm just going to sit there. I'm going to absorb. Give me your tools, give me your processes, and I'm just going to be a willing student. And the most amazing thing for me, and I was weirded out, I went into a room and they said, what are your 10-year goals? And I said, well, I don't know what I'm doing tonight. But I have found that when I had that clarity in my 10 years, and then I break that down to 5, then 3, then 1, I was achieving my 3-year goals in 1 year, my 5-year goals in 3 years, my 10-year goals in 5 years. And then so every year I just reset these 10, 5, 3, 1, and it's just this incredible accelerated pace of goal achievement. And when you look at the power of compounding, I just think it's insane not to do it.
Mm-hmm. So then, Sheryl, does that take you onto the same path for the franchising? Is this your 10-year path, 15-year path, and do you set those goals to get to that point?
It's one of those weird things for me. From the very beginning, I just kind of said no and resisted. Every time I would go out to networking events or any sort of event, people would be asking me, so are you going to be franchising? Do you have franchises? And I'll be like, nope, don't have any kind of want or need to go into franchising. But I think, after the last couple of years, and now we've built up 5 stores and we've kind of systemized things, we're starting to think of what other opportunities are out there. And so one of my really great mentors at the moment is Amanda Walker, who started Lord of the Fries. And so I was so adamant that I never wanted to do it. But I think even just hearing her story and how they kind of grew their business, I think they're going to open up to 30 stores soon. It's one of those things that I thought, maybe that this is something that we could explore. So rather than us just shutting off to that idea, we just knew that it wouldn't hurt to actually set up as a franchise. So, a few years ago, we actually already put a franchise kind of model in place. So it doesn't really hurt whether we do go down that path or not. But for us, internally, we are operating like a franchise, but we just own all of our stores.
Yeah. So obviously the key thing there is being true to the values if you go down the franchise route. Is that a worry for you, or do you not see that as being?
Yeah. I think it is a little bit of a worry, obviously, and I'm much more risk adverse. But again, speaking to people that have done it and hearing all the positives that come from, franchising, it is one of those things that makes me want to explore and learn more about it. But at the moment, that's just something that we're learning about first.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, guys, so I'm going to open it up to the audience. Has anybody got any questions for our founders this evening? Yes, gentleman on the far right.
So what is the value proposition of your business? Which stands you out of your competition? You're saying that just because there are like a lot of online business which offers the teaching as well as I'm sure there must be a lot of in the cupcakes as well. So what is your value proposition which is that, this stands us apart from the competition?
Okay. So our value proposition, I think from the very beginning, I just knew that we were much more than cupcakes. So that's why our catchphrase is hatch that dream, because I really had a dream that was quite ridiculous. I remember telling people about my dream and they're like, really, making cupcakes for a living? But I just knew that with building my business, I could actually pass this on to people and make people happy and remind them of everyone has a dream, no matter how small and big it is. So I think having that story behind it has been our differentiator. A lot of people come to us because they know that we're super passionate about it and we use the best quality ingredients. They can definitely taste the difference in our cupcakes because we bake them fresh daily. And so having that story behind it has really helped us stand out from the crowd.
The way I like to explain it is with the story of two professors in law school that I went to. One professor taught a very engaging subject that most people loved, had no problems filling up his class. The second professor taught the most dry subject you could imagine, administrative law, right? When you're looking at constitutions, administration, very dry subject. But his class would be packed full of people. The students would crawl out all the way through the door, around the staircase, and you'd have students sitting on the floor. And that's the key there. The subject, it's still law, but it's the person behind it that brings it to life and makes it magical and engaging. And for us, and you can go anywhere and buy a class or book a role in the class and go to a whiskey appreciation or winemaking. But the ones which will stick with you and stay with you are the ones that are engaging, incredibly passionate about their subject matter. And they're the types of people that we attract to our platform and our community.
Good question, great answer, guys. So what we might do is actually we might pass one of the microphones around. So I'll just put, gentleman there, you had a question, right?
Hello, my name's Emmanuel. I'd like to know, how did you go about finding great mentors?
That's a really good question. So Sheryl shared a story before, which what not to do, which was never walk up to people and say, "Will you be my mentor?" I did that. But I kind of feel like I've failed my way to where I am today. I've just made so many mistakes that I've run out of mistakes to make. That I really do feel like I've done that. The best mentors that I have had, without question, have always been people that have achieved what I want to achieve. Doesn't have to be in the same market, can be in an adjacent market, but same idea. Business problems are the same problems no matter what industry you're in, just with different faces and different context. And they're always ones that have given me the time of day. They've never asked for anything in return. Because I think they've really invested in who I am and my success. And so I really value the time that they make and set aside for me. So I make sure that I pay attention and I implement a lot of what they've given me. And so that the next time I come back, I don't waste their time. And I show them that I've grown, and I've showed them that I've tried to solve whatever issues that I was facing. And I actually believe that they get a lot of joy out of seeing my growth. Those are the best type of mentors for me.
So I would agree with that as well. But I also think that sometimes, you can be your own mentor by reading. For me, I love reading. I listen to podcasts almost every day. And yeah, for me, it's about continual growth. And I found that I ask a lot of people, what do you listen to? What do you read? We're always sharing with, our friends, this is, a life-changing book, which is why when I do presentations, I like to share what's really changed my world because, I do believe that success leaves clues. And so you find those people that have done it, that have created something that you want to create, and you can learn from them. And so in a way, it's a bit of a shortcut too. But yeah, definitely the greatest mentors, I don't know, it has come from my own learning, but it is quite hard to just go out and find mentors. I find it's like serendipity. You go out to events, you meet with people, you talk to people, and sometimes you just click and then something happens and you go, let's catch up for coffee. And so yeah, just by doing that regularly and making sure that you follow up, send them emails, let them know what you're up to, then it just naturally flows into this whole mentoring kind of relationship.
Excellent. I think there was somebody else with a question there. Lady at the back, if we could hand that back up, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
I guess my question is, what's your advice to people who has a full-time job and also trying to turn their side hustle to a full profession? Because this is my situation at the moment. So I'm working full-time and I also have a side business. But so I was speaking to my manager whether I could go part-time, but then it's either you go full-time or you lose your job. What advice? Yeah.
So before I lost my job, I was actually already starting little things on the side and you know, baking cupcakes for friends and family. And it is one of those things that you have to sacrifice your Friday nights. You know, I wasn't out drinking with my colleagues anymore. I was at home. I'd be moonlighting, so I'd be waking up and thinking about my business, you know, way past midnight. And on the weekends was just dedicated to improving my baking skills and learning as much as I could. I just remembered I did that for a good year before I actually got made redundant. So I guess if I could do it again and I didn't get made redundant, I'd probably would go out and find a part-time job and see if I could slowly wean myself out and start my business and do that part-time, because eventually, like, that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
I've got two things to share with you. The first one is with WeTeachMe, when we first started, even still to today, there really is no concept of full-time. It's just all-encompassing. It's all I think about all the time, from the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep. It's not segmented to 9 to 5, 5 days a week full-time. No, it's not. It's just life. Life just kind of melds into this big cacophony of everything. And so, you know, I think we have 24 hours in a day. If I'm 9 to 5, I'm doing one thing, then 5 to 10 or 11, there's heaps of time, lots of time for me to do something else. So that's just one thing I want to share with you. I think that, you know, we actually have a lot more time than we think we do. The days are long, the years are short. One of the biggest learnings I've had. Number two is, however, and that's a caveat there, is that if I was to do it all again, I would protect myself and my business partners from as much financial pressure as much as possible. There will always be financial pressure and financial stress, but I would take more proactive, smart steps to limit that. Because one thing that I have learned is that if you rate stress on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not really much, 10 being the most stressed out you'll ever be in your life, moving house could be a 3 out of 10. Working on an assignment that's due in the next 24 hours is like a 6 out of 10. But financial stress is about an 8 out of 10. And when you have that financial stress, everything else just topples over. It doesn't take much more stress to kind of unwind everything. So that's my biggest learning from my journey with WeTeachMe, which is just really protect yourself as much as possible from financial stress.
Cool. I'm going to ask a little question, actually. So Kym usually likes to ask this one, but I'm going to ask it to both of you anyway. So Sheryl, we'll start with you. If you could go back in time and you could tell yourself one thing for what you know now, what would it be?
It was part of my presentation, but it is learn how to meditate. I know it sounds so corny, but you know, I think over the last 2 years has been such a spiritual journey for me. Just coming back to figuring out who I am, why I'm here, what's my purpose in life, getting that all sorted. But meditation has this magical way of getting back to your root. And so for me, that's what I wish. I remember reading my journals from when I was 16. I'm like, I think I need to meditate. I'm pretty stressed at school. And I didn't know how to do it, couldn't do it for years. And the last 3 years of learning how to do Vedic meditation has just changed how I think, how I create things, come up with new ideas, and just have like this sense of center.
Can I share too? They're going to sound like complete opposites to each other too. Okay. Sheryl shared the story earlier before about how stressed out she was, where she ran upstairs into a cupboard and cried for an hour. My moment for that was when I was upstairs with my business partner, locked away in a bedroom, working on product feedback and customer support for WeTeachMe. Downstairs, we had organised a birthday party for one of our good friends. Everyone was downstairs having drinks, having a good time, and I would have none of it. I was so grumpy, and people were knocking on the door saying, Kym, come down, come on, it's his birthday, let's... And I was just short with everyone, and I was just not a very nice person to be around. And I remember at that time thinking, you know what, something's not right. So what I did was I I did some research on YouTube. I found the CEO of a public company that had just sold, a very large public company, and someone that I really admired, and I just emailed him. I said, I need help. I need your help. Something's not right. I feel like I've really lost my center, and I just want 15 minutes of your time. That's all. I'll come to you. You tell me when, you tell me where, I will come to you, and I just want 15 minutes of your time. He responded personally to that email. 3 weeks later, I was in his office, and I just explained what was happening, and the first thing he said to me was, you poor thing. And he walked through a lot of things, his own experiences about what he did with his company when they were going through. And the first thing I realized was just the stresses that he had was so much more ginormous in magnitude to mine. It just kind of put things in a bit of perspective. So he gave me a lot of tools, but the thing that really stuck out at me, and you know sometimes when someone says something, it's a bit off the cuff, but it just sticks with you. I was walking out of that room, about to close the door, and then he said, Kym, one more thing. I opened up, I looked back in, I said, yes, what? And he said, Kym, be kind to yourself. And that stuck with me for over 10 years. Yeah, well, not quite 10 years, but it stuck with me. And every time I get to a point where I get stressed out, I just remember those words and it just pulls me right back. Just pulls me right back. The second thing I want to share, which is kind of counterintuitive to that, is this idea that I always believe that I intentionally put myself in situations where I feel uncomfortable, where I feel like I do not know how I'm going to get through it, because I find that in those situations, those are the times which I grow the most, and I learn the most, and I become a better person. And it's really this idea that one should never limit their challenges, and one should always challenge the limits.
Yeah. I was actually listening to an audiobook yesterday that was talking about when people get out of the comfort zone, proteins actually grow in the brain at that time when you're actually experiencing something new or different. Even if you're in a new place, proteins are growing. So it's probably
You can't argue with
it.
science.
Yeah, exactly. Cheryl, actually, you talked a little bit about journaling as well. So just then you said you back of maybe 16 years old and you were journaling. Was that something, a muscle that you had to exercise and work on, or has it been a constant thing up until now?
I've always been a writer, so I'm actually not very good at speaking, and I was really shy as a child. So for me, when I was starting out my business, I was just so introverted, and I had to learn to go out there and meet people and talk as well. So for me, writing came really naturally. And so that's when I really feel like I'm in my element. So anytime I would be stressed, I'd be writing in my journal. So I've got literally a whole stack of books from since I was probably 10 years old. And the greatest thing about that is that every time I do feel like I'm going through a period where I can't see a way out, that I go back and I read them and I think back to all the times when I've gone through things that I couldn't think I could make it or survive it, and I did. Just kind of puts things into perspective. But journaling is like one of those things where I try to do it on a daily basis. So I do something called the 5-minute journal. If you've heard of Tim Ferriss, he does it. It's like literally every day you just, think about 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that would make today great, and then you write a daily affirmation, and then you kind of do that at night as well, and it takes 5 minutes, but it just really sets you up for such a good day. And then before you sleep, you become even more grateful. And I think if you sleep with a really, full heart and mind, it just allows you to come up with the best ideas overnight when you're sleeping. That's when I get all my crazy ideas.
I think mine are when I'm actually just putting my head on the pillow and it just comes in as my eyes are going.
Yeah.
Anyway, any more questions out there? Yes, gentleman on the right-hand side to begin with. The microphone's a little bit closer.
Sheryl, you've given us your growth forecast and your goals. What about yours, Kym? What's the future for WeTeachMe?
In the immediate next 12 months, we've started our expansion into New Zealand. Key to us because, one, we want to be beyond just Australia, and also New Zealand, I think, is a safe market to stress test our expansion strategy before we tackle a bigger market such as London or San Francisco. That's the next 12 months.
Cool. Anybody else? There was another gentleman in the middle, I think. yeah.
Sheryl, again, I think you've answered this one, so this is for Kym. How did you land on the idea for WeTeachMe? So going from where you were to your fully formed, or maybe not fully formed, what was that process like to explore different things, or did you just know? What was that journey like?
The one thing I want to say about ideas is that the idea that we had at the beginning is not the idea that we have now. Even what we have now is not the same as what we thought we would have 12 months ago. So the idea changes constantly for us, but what does remain constant is the reason why we started WeTeachMe. And for us, for me, I'll speak about my personal experience, but all my best decisions in my life, for my business, for the people I surround myself by, who I choose to be surrounded myself by, because I think you mentioned you're the average of the 5 people you are around. I 100% believe in that. Those decisions have always come from my gut, never from here, because this just knows. An exercise that I do, because it's very hard for me to switch off this, is to get a sheet of paper, divide it down the middle, pros and cons. I'll spend 10 minutes writing out all the pros are, all the cons are, and then I'll throw up that list and just go with my gut. Because what I find is that my gut is able to make a more informed decision once I've put thought to what they are intellectually, but my gut has never steered me wrong.
Cool. Excellent. Anybody else out there?
So how do you manage, you said that the financials are very stressful, so how do you manage your financials? So do you thought of like going for a bootstrapping or going for investors on board, and was it very difficult to get the investors on board? How did you deal with your financial stress?
So at the very beginning, I used the Triple F fund, which is friends, fools and family. So no, we really, had our own savings, and also we had a lot of support from our family. And yeah, a couple of friends helped us out too when we couldn't get by. And so for us, we had to build on that. And, when we did start making money, we didn't go out and buy boats and all the fancy things. We really reinvested in our business every dollar we had. So for, 2 to 3 years, we were just living it as lean as we could. I wasn't going out and partying. I didn't go out with friends to nice dinners anymore. I didn't really buy new clothes. Just invested every dollar back into the business. And I think that's one of the key things why when I do explain to people when you want to start your own business, I always say that really be sure that you're passionate about it, because it's so easy to want to give up. Like when you're seeing other people having fun and you can't participate in all of that because you're not making money or you're still building your business, gets so easy. So if you don't have that passion and that why driving you just want to give up.
For me, it's really this belief that necessity will always inspire genius. We put ourselves in a situation where we had no choice but to make it work. And so we found ways to make it work. So whenever we needed money, we'd go to our clients and say, pay us a year in advance, we'll give you 20% off. Or we would go out and search for, hustle for more clients, because one of the things for us was this understanding that sales cures a lot of things, a lot of immediate issues anyway. That's how we tackle the finance side of things.
And you haven't thought of going to any investors on board, or some angel investors or something like that?
We have given thought about it, but one of the things which we put a lot of importance on for the team at WeTeachMe is this idea that we have about where we want the world to go with learning and education and knowledge, and who we want to facilitate that knowledge transfer. And we want to protect this vision that we have. So if we were to ever let in a team member or an angel investor or an investor or a VC fund, for example, they would have to be a very specific type where they share our values and our vision. That's the only time we would consider it.
Cool. Guys, we're coming towards the end of the Q&A now, so if there is anybody with a question out there, then please feel free to raise your hand now. I'll ask probably the last question. So, based on kind of obviously what you've talked about this evening, how do you see yourself as a person? How have you changed from the start to where you are now? Are you the same person, or are you completely different?
If I was the same person, I'd probably be really disappointed in myself. But yeah, I'm really such a different person to who I was before. I think, you know, at the very beginning, it was much more like, how can I tick off these goals and targets and, you know, things that I wanted. And it's really evolved from that to now. I mean, as I was saying before, I've been going through a spiritual journey and understanding who I am, why I'm here, what is my purpose here, and really working on that. So yeah, I've really just evolved from that space and, you know, become a better leader as well. I started when I was 26, so I was leading a team of like 30 by 28, and I just had no idea how to lead a team. And so that has been such a great journey, and I'm still learning and growing.
Mm-hmm. Just, sorry, before we come to Kym, just to add on that as well, do you think that when the problems get bigger, are you able to handle stress better as the problems have got bigger over time from when you first started as well?
What's definitely helped me is realizing that a lot of entrepreneurs go through the same thing. And so it wasn't until I joined EO Entrepreneurs Org that I realized that, you know, the bigger the businesses are, the more money you make, the bigger your challenges are. And so for me, now that I see my challenges, I see that as a privilege to actually deal with them, because it means that I'm growing. I used to see it as like, why am I going through this? I don't understand. And so just switching that perspective and going, oh, I get to deal with this challenge. You know, I get to deal with this massive problem right now where, you know, one of my longest staff members was caught stealing and really broke my heart. And I thought to myself, okay, this is a learning for me. So normally I'd get really annoyed and angry and upset and feeling betrayed, but instead I felt like this is an opportunity for me to learn. Yeah.
Excellent, always that opportunity. And Kym, yourself, how have you changed over time, if you have? That is?
I think the core of myself is still the same, but I have become very good at being intentional in terms of who I surround myself with. And I find that when I surround myself with people I admire, trust and respect, I start absorbing a lot of those qualities through osmosis. Day by day I don't realize it, but then when I look back I'm like, oh my God, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Great way to end. So thank you very much, guys. Sheryl of Cupcake Central. Guys, can we have a round of applause for Sheryl, please? And Kym Huynh of WeTeachMe. Can we have a round of applause for Kym, please? And a round of applause for yourselves for attending the Masters Series by WeTeachMe. Thank you.